Hello, everyone. My name is Jett Walker, and my presentation is entitled A Survey and Review of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Resources website provided by the League of American Orchestras. It is no secret that much of the Western art music canon was composed by white, European, cisgender males who have long since deceased. These compositions are then performed by organizations that have musicians, directors, boards, and audience members that are predominantly white. This then leads to a cycle of systemic racism, a lack of diversity in performers, and ultimately a select repertoire of music that does not adequately reflect the population of our world. Fortunately, the absurdity of the situation has caught the attention of several musicians and organizations, and there have been steps taken to rectify this injustice. One of the largest organizations that is at the forefront of this work is the League of American Orchestras. Their website features an entire section of resources designated to provide practical and helpful insights, advice, and a path to greater diversity and inclusion in every part of an organization. In this paper, I will survey and review materials provided by the League of American Orchestras in order to highlight the helpful work that is being done, in addition to providing insights into areas in need of further clarification, advocacy, or research. Before focusing on the equity, diversity, and inclusion done by the League of American Orchestras, I will first provide a brief overview of three separate entities, all of various sizes, doing similar work. First, on a large scale, we have groups like the Sphinx organization, which is a social justice organization dedicated to transforming lives through the power of diversity in the arts. Sphinx supports diversifying the arts by providing resources for access to art for youth, development of young artists, advocacy for professional artists, and education for leadership in the arts. One of their flagship programs is the Sphinx competition that provides an opportunity to young Black and Latinx musicians to compete for prize money, access to scholarships and high-quality instruments, performance opportunities, and mentorship from professional musicians. This competition has served as a launchpad for several highly successful musicians and continues to be a fine example of equity, diversity, and inclusion in classical music. Second, on a much smaller scale, there are groups like the My Cincinnati Youth Orchestra. My Cincinnati is a program of Price Hill Will, a community development corporation that provides free ensemble-based music education to students in the Price Hill neighborhood of Cincinnati. Their program is inspired by the El Sistema model, originating from Venezuela, in which music education is provided at no cost to the student. World-renowned musicians like Gustavo Dudamel, director of the Los Angeles Philharmonic, among many others, are products of this El Sistema program in Venezuela and are proof of its success and importance. One of the foundational aspects of El Sistema is that each child learns as a part of a group, emphasizing the building of culture and community. The My Cincinnati program provides free ensemble-based learning in an after-school setting with free instruments provided, taught by highly trained teaching artists in an environment that is inviting to diverse groups of students. The access and training in music aids in the diversification and representation of underrepresented groups in the arts. Finally, on an even smaller scale, there are individuals or partners that have used their platform to encourage their peers and colleagues to engage in equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives. One example of such a partnership is that of the McCain Duo. The McCain Duo is a piano and bass trombone chamber group consisting of husband and wife members Martin and Artina McCain. Artina McCain is assistant professor of piano at the University of Memphis, and Martin McCain is artist, teacher, and professor of trombone at Texas State University. The McCain Duo regularly commissions, performs, and records works for BIPOC artists, as well as they stay active in additional EDI efforts outside of their performance schedule. One of those efforts is a YouTube series, which they have titled Elevate, that features interviews with professional artists intended to inspire the next generation of musicians. As Black artists themselves, McCain Duo regularly highlight artists from typically underrepresented groups. They also have a video entitled Equity in Classical Music that challenges its audience to diversify their performance repertoire, call for diversity among their teachers and colleagues, and provide opportunities for their students to have access to role models of the same background. The McCain Duo is a great example of musicians using their platform to change the world for the better. And I've got a short clip here we'll watch of that video I referenced.
Hey guys, we had a great
So a couple of things, repertoire. So anybody that's playing or if you're teaching, it's really important for you to be the first stop for your students to learn about new repertoire. I was just having a conversation the other day about this with another interview, and they were saying that they really believe like band directors, orchestra directors, elementary music school teachers really have the gateway privilege of introducing children to music that's not completely by white European composers. So if that's you, you have a job to do, okay? And you have a really big, important job to do to influence the youngest of our new and budding musicians and just music appreciators to really understand the importance of broadening their scope of what they listen to.
And that's
excellent stuff there. It's a great video if you have the time at some point.
Hey.
All right, moving on. Organizations of varying size like the Sphinx organization, L System Inspired My Cincinnati, and Chamber Group the McCain Duo all do their part to support EDI and classical art music. Moving on, I will now discuss the League of American Orchestras and survey and review their resources on equity, diversity, and inclusion. The League of American Orchestras is a service organization that provides services vital to the growth and success of the orchestral world. These services are essentially the best practices for orchestras and are targeted not just at performing musicians, but also for operations managers and development teams, boards and steering committees, and artistic directors. In addition to many of these services being offered on their website, the League also publishes Symphony Magazine, a quarterly magazine that reports on critical trends, issues, and developments in the orchestral world. This is the only magazine in the United States that is devoted to symphony orchestras. In addition to this print source, the League also runs 2 digital media platforms, The Hub and Symphony Spot. The Hub is a digital compilation of media coverage for orchestras in the League and can serve as easy access database of current and past news stories. Symphony Spot is a newer feature of the League spawned out of necessity for promotion due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This corner of the League's website provides a listing of all digital performance offerings for each orchestra, in addition to links to their website and social media platforms. Marketing directors can now continue to build patron and donor bases even when there are no physical audiences in attendance. The League has a section of their website entitled Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Resource Center. This section is broken up into 3 parts that deal with the following broad topics: an overview of the current lack of EDI, resources aimed at different roles in the orchestra, and a report of the League's own internal efforts at improving EDI. I will discuss and review each of these parts in turn. The first section is by far the vastest and appears to be comprehensive. It is displayed in a very aesthetically pleasing manner with color-coordinated click tabs with related topics. The first 2 links are for the race equity, what is anti-racism and why is it important to orchestras, and making the case for equity, diversity, and inclusion pages. These 2 pages attempt to set a baseline for EDI conversations by providing definitions and context for the following categories: racism, anti-racism, systemic racism, unconscious bias, and orchestra's history of systemic racism. These words and phrases are used so often in conversations about EDI, it is wise that the League has been sure to provide correct definitions for these words and context about how they relate to the world of orchestra. They also provide a guide that is intended to help the orchestra field take action to become more inclusive and welcoming of all people and all differences. The next set of color-coordinated click tabs have pages titled Artistic Resources, Building Diverse and Equitable Teams, and inclusive boards and governance. The artistic resources page provides information about equity in the selection process, auditions, and faults in its current practices, along with recommendations for diversifying repertoire and ideas for creating an orchestral community that is truly open to inclusion. The next 2 pages mentioned above are less artistic and more managerial. Their recommended readings and videos challenge current orchestral administrators to recruit and retain diverse board members and to lead teams that are supportive of an improvement in the organization's EDI initiatives. Most of these resources do acknowledge the difficulties in what they are prescribing, but are still empathetic that it is a crucial step, or are still emphatic that it is a crucial step in order to see lasting changes in the organization. The last of the color-coded click tabs have pages titled Differing Abilities, Gender Equity, and LGBTQIA+. These pages deal with the non-race parts of EDI that are sometimes not given the same attention. The Differing Abilities page provides studies and examples of orchestras that are working to provide sensory-friendly concerts, neurodiverse programming, and performances that address physical challenges such as visual and hearing impairments. The Gender Equity page recognizes that there have been great strides in this area over recent years, but still challenges the reader to dive deeper into issues of sexual misconduct and harassment, as well as reevaluate certain hiring procedures that are inherently discriminatory. The LGBTQIA+ page attempts to provide resources that both encourage inclusion of performers of all sexual orientations and highlight organizations that exemplify this. However, it is obvious that this page has one of the smallest numbers of resources and might signify an area in need of further research. The next main section of the website contains resources of special interest to each of the following: orchestra board members, orchestra staff, and orchestra musicians. The section pertaining to board members covers a wide range of topics from EDI advocacy materials and case studies to self-assessment and strategic tools. This section also includes a large list of past meetings and webinars that are available for on-demand viewing. The section pertaining to orchestra staff features guides dealing with the hiring and recruiting of diverse staff, as well as for implementing or improving EDI initiatives in one's orchestra. Some of the resources are similar to those for the board members, but these seem to focus more on the day-to-day operations, logistics, and policies rather than big picture steering of the orchestra. It is important to note that both previous sections also include a list of resources that is designed to help BIPOC staff and board members network with colleagues in similar roles and hopefully develop a deeper sense of community throughout the league's orchestras. The final section is for musicians and discusses repertoire and equity in the selection process, topics that were previously covered in the artistic resources section. However, this page does include a connect section that provides links to organizations that support the diversifications of artists. The Sphinx organization is actually one of the featured groups in this section as well. Overall, while not designed for mass consumption, the past 3 sections discussed successfully provide a hub for board members, staff, and musicians to find EDI resources relevant to their careers. The final section I will discuss, found at the bottom of the league's EDI website, is entitled From the League. This section presents the league's own thoughts, views, and commitments to EDI in their own organization and is split up into 4 separate web pages. The league reports on EDI, the league's EDI programs, league statements on EDI, and the EDI committee of the league's board of directors. The league has also commissioned several reports on diversity in the field, inclusion of African American and Latin musicians in orchestras over the past 40 years, and community engagement work. Most of these reports are from the last 5 to 10 years, although they do reference studies done in the previous 30 to 40 years. The 3 programs discussed are the Catalyst Fund, awards grants to orchestra the Catalyst Fund awards grants to orchestras committed to developing EDI initiatives. The National Alliance for Audition Support was co-founded by the League to increase the number of Black and Latinx musicians in orchestras. And the ALAANA administrators was organized by the League to provide a network of orchestra administrators of African, Latinx, Asian, Arab and Middle Eastern, or Native American descent. The League also provides copies of statements it has already made in solidarity with those suffering from racial discrimination. These statements were written in the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as in response to hate crimes experienced by many Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. This section also features reports and meeting minutes from the EDI committee of the League's board of directors. In conclusion, there are many great strengths of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Resource Center provided by the League of American Orchestras. For example, the League should be acknowledged for their financial and resourceful commitment to providing tools for lasting change in North American orchestras. As a flagship organization, they help light the path for others to follow and are deserving of commending. Their resources on promoting racial equity and diversity for both musicians and administrators are particularly strong, and they have even included resources for increasing accessibility for visual and hearing impairments. However, I believe the League falls short in their commitment to providing resources for the LGBTQIA+ community. The resource pages are short, and the pages that provide tools for inclusion and diversity only do so from a racial standpoint rather than sexual orientation as well. I would encourage the League to continue their excellent EDI work and would hope to see additional resources added to this support the LGBTQIA+ community. Thank you for listening. Hope you learned something. Have a great rest of your day.